Welcome to Heart, where we break the silence, bridge the gaps, and bring real conversations about mental health to the forefront. I'm your host, Leigh Ioffe, founder and director of The Long Short Road. Hi, Marcy. Welcome to the show.
Kylie, it's so nice to see you.
I'm really grateful to have you. It's been a long time since we've had a recorded conversation, so I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've loved our past one, so I'm excited for this one.
Same. I like to ask my guests before we jump into the topic to introduce themselves in their own words. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Oh, wow. Okay. My name is Marcy Forta. I am the founder and director of Atzmi. Atzmi is an organization that supports the mental health of our from girls through programs that help with their body image, self-compassion, the way they speak to themselves, emotion regulation, gives them skills and tools, but also empirically. Everything we do is based on Torah and Hashkafa, but is also empirically based in how we head off eating disorders and kind of help the girls.
Mm.
We have curriculum in the schools. We have a program for moms and a program for educators. And we have been doing this. This is our third year with that program. I used to be a clothing store owner, a SNES clothing store owner
I
here
was
in Michigan, where we're
gonna ask
from.
you. I was gonna ask you
Yeah, and
how
so
the
I
trajectory.
think it really did kind of follow through. I just really saw that struggle, the young girl in a changing body, feeling very uncomfortable, all of a sudden having shape where she didn't have shape and curves where she didn't have curves, really uncomfortable in her body. How do I dress this body? How do I feel comfortable? Mothers and daughters struggling, mothers having children for the first time, their bodies changing, women going through menopause and their bodies changing. So, really, just a lot of struggle and strain for everybody. And it really affected me in so many ways. But as someone who had really struggled with an eating disorder as a teen myself,
Mm.
I it resonated with me so deeply, and I felt like we needed to do something. You don't have to have an eating disorder to struggle with your body image, and we can all be supported in that. I think we all struggle at some point or another throughout our lives,
Yeah.
and I am very big, like you, into being proactive versus reactive, because once you have an issue, it's very difficult to get out of those issues. And so we really want to head off those issues, and
Wow.
that's kind of what I do.
Wow. I I'm so grateful that Ask exists. And I'll say it in the same way that I say this about the long short road. It's also sad that there's so much work out there for both of us. Like I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, business must be good. I'm like, that's not a good, you guys realize that's not a good thing, right? Like
Exactly.
I like to be focusing on resiliency and building resilience in people and not putting out fires and keeping them, you know, trying to help them find reasons to stay alive. Yeah. So I want to jump right into what are you seeing? Like you have your boots on the ground in so many schools and so many communities through your education programs. And I remember when we spoke, when we did an Instagram live like 2 or 3 years ago, I think you were like had only been in a handful of schools. And since then it's like you guys are everywhere, which is amazing and it's so necessary. And I wonder if you could tell me like what is the could you give us like a screenshot of what you're seeing among young girls today?
We're definitely seeing an increase in eating disorders for sure, but mental health struggles overall, yes. I mean, that's definitely wherever I go. We're definitely seeing cutting, we're seeing burning, we're seeing eating disorders. Now, I'm not going to say that it's all bleak, because what I love that I'm seeing is that schools are so invested in helping their students, and they're working with them in so many ways, and they're bringing in these programs, and they're doing wonderful, amazing things. I've been so fortunate to see so many fantastic principals and administrators, people who are really on the ground with the girls and working so hard with them. But yet, unfortunately, we are seeing a lot an increase in eating disorders, I would say, at young ages. I'm seeing it diagnosed as young as 8-year-olds in our community. We're seeing a lot of weight bullying, weight stigmatizing, bullying. Actually, for a while, I thought it was really starting in first grade, which is very, very young. But actually, there have been people come up to me and say it's starting in preschool, even, that kids are making fun of other kids. You're fat, don't eat that, go sit over there. Such young ages, it's heartbreaking, really. And this is a learned behavior, and these are, those don't kids don't even really know what they're saying, but we do know that the negative effects of weight bullying are lifelong,
Yeah.
and can lead to many negative health outcomes. Um, and I think sometimes people think that when we weight stigmatize, or we might motivate somebody by guilting them into making a change, but the research shows that's not really what happens. People who are kind of weight bully or shamed tend to be heavier, tend to have less good health outcomes, tend to less take care of themselves, and have more mental health struggles than other people who don't have that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so, and of course, we're definitely seeing a huge increase in GLP-1 use,
Yeah.
uh, even cosmetic procedures to some extent
In
in
young,
certain
in
schools.
young women,
Yeah.
talking about high school girls.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, it's really very scary,
Wow.
um, how much stock they put into, them having to look perfect. And if their friends are doing it, it's that peer pressure. I think that everyone else is doing it. I had been to the Torah Masora conference, and I've written about this and we've talked about it, but a principal from a Beis Yaakov mainstream school said to me, and these were her words, not mine, that every girl in her high school is using GLP-1s, and that every girl in her high school is a size 0 or 2.
Oh my goodness.
And I mean, that's dangerous and that's terrible for so many reasons. But I am concerned about the long-term health implications of using GLP-1 medications on young children. I mean, honestly, the American Pediatric Association has approved them for use in children 12 and up in under certain conditions. It's not that they're, saying you should use them.
Right.
They've given permission for us to use them in certain situations, but those companies that are making these kind of GLP-1 medications are also applying now for use in 6 to 11-year-olds at a lower dose,
Wow.
because now that obesity is supposed to be a disease, we have to have a medication to fix the disease.
Right.
And so I have no judgment for adults who make an adult informed decision with their doctor about their health. It's none of my business. But what I'm seeing in the schools and the outcomes, and these are short-term outcomes, right? Because it's only happening in the last year or so,
Right.
maybe a little bit more. We don't know what this is going to do long term, but we are seeing changes in the girls' menstrual cycles. So much harder periods, longer, painful, needing to stay home from school for several days. Like, it is changing the nature of their cycle, which
Wow.
means it's crossing that barrier, which means we don't really know what that might do to their fertility or other things.
Wow. I'm just taking in, I try when we do these recordings to have like a neutral expression, and I am just so, even though we talked about this, I off camera, I still am feeling such a deep sense of like shock or alarm about what you're sharing with me. It just, I'm kind of finding it a little challenging to stay composed right now. It's, and part of, I want to go back to something you said before and just kind of pull it apart, that what you said about body shaming and body bullying and shaming a person's body doesn't give them that corrective idea that they should eat better or take better care of themselves. And we talk about that in mental health a lot, that you cannot hate yourself into healing. Like, if you are feeling shame about something and then you douse it with more shame, you're not going to suddenly be like, well, gee, now that I've been told that my body is ugly and da 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 da, I should make positive changes for my growth. Like, we're perpetuating more pain by adding more shame. But also, and this is, I guess, a question. I mean, where is this coming from? Like, I feel like this didn't start in a vacuum, that now all of these young women are on GLP-1s. It had to have started somewhere. Like, is it starting from messaging that we're getting in society? Like, is it starting at home? Like, what is I know there's probably not one answer. There isn't one answer, but like, could you kind of paint a picture of where could this be coming from for these young women?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I don't think there is one answer. And one more piece to it is also, even, people are buying it unsanctioned online. Girls coming home from seminary, I hear a lot about maybe they gained weight in the year that they were there and ordering it online, not really knowing what they're putting in their body when you do it that way, because it's not doctor prescribed, it's not being made in a pharmacy that you know of, and they're using the medications that way. So, when I talk to parents and when I really give these seminars. Yes, we have secular media. Okay, fine. But honestly, we have media in our own community, our own magazines, our own clothing stores, our own expectations, our own family members who are reinforcing these messages about when we are in a smaller body, we are more disciplined, we are smarter, we work harder. It just reflects on us in every way, in a
Mhm.
more positive way. And honestly, we're perpetuating it by the messaging that we get everywhere we go. Think about for a minute, even when you're in shul, when you go to a store, when you're out and about and you see somebody you haven't seen, how do we tend to approach it? You know,
About
you look really
the
good. Did you lose weight? I love your shaitel. I love your outfit.
yeah,
Um, it's really, we compliment on the physical,
yeah,
which I'm not saying is in and of itself a terrible thing to do, but the reality is it's a very surface thing to do, and we are modeling then for our kids that that's what we tend to compliment people on, so that shows them that's what we actually value, even though obviously we know that our value comes from a much different place than just our physical appearance. Sadly, what we model in our communities is different, and they'll always tell you, right, with your kids, they do what you do, not what you say.
correct.
They see where that value comes from. How are we talking on the phones with our friends? Oh, you know, I was so bad this weekend. I ate this, or I have to lose 15 pounds for the chasana, or I'm not going to fit into the dress, or whatever that looks like. We have to be so careful about the messaging that we're giving our children. Our magazines have to be careful about the ads that they let go in there. I mean, we've had ads for plastic surgery for children.
Oh.
You know, it'll say 18 and up, but ask your Rav for Heterim for six. If
That
a mother approves 16 and up, but you can ask your Rav for Heterim for Shalom Bias and Shidduchim purposes. That's what that ad said in a From magazine. That's what that ad said.
having
So
said that,
what
I'd
message
say
does that give our girls? So
wow.
you actually, in order to have Shalom Bias or in order to get a shit off, you have to change what you look like.
Mm, mm. I'll be
We don't
honest,
need to go to TikTok or Instagram. We have it in our own community.
it's I as you're saying this, I'm just, for I purposefully and it's like, I guess I don't know, maybe this is like a good wake up call to the community that we need to change how I purposefully don't keep those magazines in my house. And like it's sad for me because on one hand, I'm missing out on potentially a lot of positive Jewish content, which I would love for my kids to have. But, we were in someone's home for Shabbos and I flipped one open and there's advertisements for Ozempic. There's buy a raffle ticket and the prize is Ozempic. Or
Absolutely.
or
Hmm.
right, or plastic surgery or things like that. It's just the messaging is very around, you're right, that surface level. And something that I was thinking of as you were saying this is I know many people, many people who are struggling with disordered eating or eating disorders or are in recovery for eating disorders. And they tell me how frustrating it is and upsetting it is when they see someone and the compliment immediately is, oh my God, you lost so much weight. You look fantastic. They're starving themselves. It's not
What about,
healthy,
yeah, and
positive weight. And, it's not a healthy, positive weight loss. It's they're not eating for 3 or 4 days in a row so that they could fit into a size zero.
right. But also people who have had someone going through a hard time in their life, maybe they're going through a divorce or a loss, and sometimes people can't eat physically because they feel
So,
sick, right, from it, and they lose weight, and then they'll share with me. People will say to them, "You look so great, you look so skinny. What did you do?" And they're like, they actually take it as an insult more than a compliment because they said they see my body, but they don't see my face, they don't see my anguish, they don't see my pain. They're just looking at my body, and they find that so almost offensive. So
yeah,
we have to be so careful
yeah,
um, about those kinds of things. And I agree with you. You really don't know what's going on with someone's body. It's never our business
right,
to comment on somebody else's body. Unless you're their doctor, then it's none of our business.
right. But
And
we
and
keep
it
that,
worries me because we use these GLP-1 medications. If someone is struggling with their body image and they're using the medication, certainly they might feel better about themselves for a little while, but ultimately what's underlying that issue has to be dealt with if there is an issue underlying it. And if you don't give them skills and tools for that, but you just change their physical appearance, then their mental health will suffer at
yeah,
some point. And if, chas v'shalom, they have to go off the medication or they gain weight, then what happens, right? All the strides that they've made are reversed. So are you giving them support throughout? And what are we doing by allowing our children, people will say to me, how are they even getting this medication, right? Some of these kids are not in real large bodies or struggling in that way. And parents are sharing their medication, or they're buying it online, or they're just lying about it online, that they don't have this issue or they're this age, and they're just buying it that way, or they're sharing their diabetes medication with their children. What are we thinking?
Wow. Wow. It's so alarming. And
And like, yeah,
and
what
to
you see
your
with suicide, that's why it scares me, because it will
point,
impact their mental health.
because so, and it goes back to something that you just shared, that you could make those surface level outer changes in your to your body. If the inside is not being worked on, and if the person is not being empowered to develop skills to help them weather the storm of life, because let's say, for example, we'll take an 18-year-old girl who's on a GLP-1, right? And she gets married and she has a baby. For whatever reason, she has to go off the medication. After her first baby, she's struggling to lose 30 pounds. The message that's been perpetuated about herself, or that she's gained, that she's learned through experience, and the perspective that she's now seeing the world through is bad. I'm bad. If there's something wrong with me. She doesn't have those internal tools for self-compassion, for self-regulation, for sitting in the discomfort of, I'm not losing the weight right now. Maybe it'll happen in a year. My worthiness is not determined on those 30 pounds that I haven't lost yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most people don't have that skill set. We're not teaching that skill set in society. We're teaching, here's a quick fix. Here's something that will help you feel good for right now. And who cares what will happen in 5 years from now? You're going to feel great and you're going to look great. And I don't think it's just with, I think we do that with a lot of things.
I agree with you. A lot of times parents will say to me, what words, like what exactly should I say if my daughter says, am I fat or I am fat? Like, give me the words to say so that she'll feel better. And I'm like, you're looking at this in the wrong way, because the truth is you can fix her today, how that one comment, or you can build skills with her for a lifetime, so that when she hears a messaging or she doesn't feel good or she has a hard day, she has the skills and tools. She's built that resilience, like you said, to be comfortable enough in her body, even on days when we don't like it or we feel uncomfortable in it. We can have that kind of self-compassion talk that, like you were speaking about. It's really about building skills and tools. It's a lifetime of work. It's not, and honestly, I think that's kind of like the philosophy that people have a lot of the time. If you have a pill to fix something, it's a lot easier than working on it from another angle, because it just takes it away for now and we'll deal with the rest of the outcomes later. And sometimes we need medication, and I'm not downing on medication. People need medication. Um, they definitely need medication. But in this instance, what happens actually with GLP-1s, right? Your stomach becomes full, right? It delays the gastric emptying. You physically can't eat because you're full all the time, and your stomach has food in it. It's not emptying out like it normally would. So for adolescents who are actually growing their bones and their body and their organs and their brain more than any other period of time in their life,
Mhm.
they're actually in starvation.
Yes.
And so they will have cognitive impairment from that. Their bones might not be formed like they should, so they might get osteoporosis earlier in their life. Their organs might not be formed. Their height might not get to the place where it was meant to be. You're actually putting your child through starvation at an age when they need more nutrients than they've ever needed before. So not only does it cause more eating disorders, because eating disorders are not only about when someone deliberately decides to stop eating, right? That's one piece, right? They've taken that control back through food. But what we've learned is, biologically, for some people, the weight loss itself can trigger the eating disorder. So somebody who has a bad flu or who hasn't eaten in a while, that in and of itself, for somebody with that genetic predisposition or other issues, can trigger it. So people on GLP-1s who physically cannot eat, when given the ability to eat or go off the medication or whatever it is, they actually can't eat anyway. And
Right.
it is causing more eating disorders, but it's causing more malnourishment in our children.
Right. Which is also leading to more mental health challenges. And we do see a lot of, there's a comorbidity. Well, I guess it's not a comorbidity because suicide is not an illness. a symptom, right? What we see with many, the symptom of suicide in many young women is connected to their eating disorders because of the way that it's changing their brains. A body that is malnourished and a brain that is malnourished is not, especially in young people whose prefrontal cortex is under construction and not functioning properly anyway. It's like you're taking tools away from a demographic that is already in many ways developmentally predispositioned to struggle because their brains are not fully formed yet. So this is the opportune time in their life to be giving them the nutrients they need, the skills they need, the support they need to help contribute to that healthy growth so that they could be whole, well-rounded, mentally strong people in society. And we're literally taking it away from. We're taking away the tools, even just with basic nourishment of our bodies, which has become, it almost seems to me like what I'm hearing from everything, what I'm picking up from everything you're sharing, and I might be wrong, is that it's like we're looking at food almost as the enemy and as punishment to our bodies when it's Hashem created our relationship with food so that we need it in order to thrive. And it's become the enemy.
I agree. And Hashem, like you said, created our bodies to require nourishment several times a day, every single day, right? So food, our relationship with food, we teach our kids skills, right? Hygiene skills, brush your teeth, wash your hands, listening to our body signals. When you need to use the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. Moida'ani, whatever it is, washing Nagelwasser, like eating food should be a skill.
Yeah.
We recognize hunger, right? Our body gives us a signal when it's in need of food, and when it's ready, when it's full, it gives us another cue, and we know that it's time to stop eating.
Mhm.
But we've kind of messed up all the cues, if you will, just by the ways we use food as a reward, as a punishment. We withhold it, we give it for other things. Earning food, it's not the same to me. Let's say we have donuts on Hanukkah or we do a special Rosh Chodesh thing. That's not earning food. That's really food is love. Food is part of our religion. But when you say fill this chart or do this thing and you earn food, then you're using food for the wrong reason, because then it's about feelings of achievement. Or you give your child, once a mother said to me, yeah, but when my child gets hurt, I give her a lollipop. Like, what am I going to do to soothe her? And I'm like, maybe put her on your lap and
Right,
give her
give
a hug. But if you're giving her a lollipop, then food now becomes about alleviation of negative emotions. So
right.
now their relationship with food is being altered.
Yeah.
And we really want them to use food for what it's meant to be used for and still have joy in it. Food is love, food is connection, food is religion. But we really do make it the evil. We call it garbage and junk.
Right.
And we call people who eat it like that they don't have self-control, right? We're very judgmental about it. So I do think we make it the enemy.
Right. Which is, I'm thinking now even to like the way that I've paid attention with my children about how I talk about food and my relationship with food and my relationship with my body in front of my kids because they're paying attention. My oldest is 6.
Mm-hmm.
She's absorbing everything. So it is right. Like we've made it something like it's an achievable goal, which it's just the part of the basic foundation of our being able to function in our bodies. Like
Absolutely.
forget being able to achieve anything. A starving brain like is not,
Oh, they're not rational and you can't reason with them. And, they're not going to do things like
but
you
it's not,
expect them to do.
but it's not their fault. I just
No.
want to like it's I and I'm the reason I'm saying that is because so often when parents will call me about their teenagers, they'll talk to me about this behavior that they're seeing in their kids, which comes off very chutzpahdik, very annoying, very lack of willpower, and it's like it has nothing to do with those things. A person who is not in their right mind and is not able to access up here, which teenagers have a hard time anyway with that because of their where they're holding their brain development. And then
Hmm.
they're struggling with a mental health disorder or they're starving themselves or whatever it is. You have to look under the hood. It's not a chutzpah thing. I don't know how else to articulate. This is how I know how to say that I'm struggling is to
Right.
scream and yell and lash out or shut you out or etc.
Absolutely. Or even through their food. people with eating disorders, food is that mechanism. They don't always know what's underlying it or what they're using the food for, but foods become the mechanism, right? And cutting, it might be cutting, and burning, it might be burning. But what's really difficult, I would say, about eating disorders and food issues is that, first of all, eating disorders are a physical and a mental illness, right? So some illnesses have side effects that will be physical or mental, like a mental illness might have physical side effects, but this is both at the same time. And this makes it particularly difficult to treat because you kind of have to have such a pronged, such an approach. But they're using food, they don't understand what they're using it for, and like you said, when they're malnourished, their brain isn't functioning. So a lot of times I'll tell like parents, you have to understand your child is in there, but it's not who you're communicating with at the moment.
Sure.
The eating disorder voice and the eating disorder is kind of in charge
Yeah.
right now. And we have to kind of get to the person underneath. And,
Mm.
and that really does make it very complicated. And when a child is malnourished, it's kind of that same idea because they're not rational. Like you
Right.
said, they're really not rational.
Right.
Um,
And also something that people don't understand about eating disorders, which I also didn't understand until I was in this field. Like a lot of times it's like, why would you know this information unless, God forbid, you're being confronted by it? You can't just put a plate of food in front of a starving person who's been starving themselves for 6 months and tell them to eat. That actually could have very negative ramifications on their body.
mhm.
And it's very confusing for people. Like, well, okay, well, why can't they just eat? Because their body has learned how to exist in a certain way now, and you have to meet them where they're at, which is it's very hard,
I like to give the muscle of like a Thomas, right? So we don't eat for 26 hours.
right?
And think about it. When we decide when it's time to eat, what do? We take a sip of water, a sip of juice, we wait, we take a bite. Our stomach is really like you can't just sit down and eat a meal, and that's 26 hours.
Right.
Somebody who's been starving or purging or binging and messing up their whole digestion is
Yeah,
is really in a whole different place, then yeah, they're going to have bloating and nausea, and it's going to be dangerous for them. First of all, it is dangerous for them to just eat anything. That has to be medically supervised. Yes, but also they're going to have a lot of gastric issues
right.
throughout that for sure.
As I'm hearing you say this, it's just I want to talk about skills because part of me is like, not that God forbid I don't feel hopeless, but often when I have these conversations, I'm like, wow, I'm realizing just how big of a challenge we're facing as a community. And
Yeah.
it's heavy. It's a heavy realization. Not that I don't know that because I'm confronted by it every day, literally
Right.
every day, but this is a different angle that I'm not, this is not our area of expertise or focus, so it's not usually what we're focusing on. So it's just,
But I
yeah,
agree with you. I think that the education piece is so important.
yeah,
And like you said, I think there have been great strides. And I educate parents. It's really important for parents to understand that it's not their fault.
right.
That's really important for me to get out there to them because a lot of times that paralyzes the parent from being able to help the child. Like
Mm,
I did this is my fault. What did I do? And sometimes that means that they can't get their child help because they feel tremendous guilt.
right.
But the reality is, and I'm not just saying it to make them be able to get their child help, eating disorders are very complicated, as are mental health issues, as you know, in general. The risk factors come from many places. They're biological, they're psychological, they're environmental. You can't blame yourself. There's too many factors that go into it. So I do think education is really, really important just to have that better understanding
Yeah,
around it. And I want parents also to understand that their body size and their child's body size does not only come from how much they choose to eat or not eat and how much they choose to exercise or not exercise. The CDC and all these places will tell you our body size comes from genetics and stress and sleep habits and socioeconomic status and where you are in your developmental stage, medications you might be taking, illnesses you might be undergoing. It's a complex system of what happens. And like you talked about that woman who might have those 30 extra pounds, her body might be holding on to that for a specific reason right now because she needs that energy for dealing with her whole family or whatever reason, or her adrenals or her hormone levels are in a place. So yes, it's important to want to be healthy and nourish your body in a good way, but your body might not be letting go of that right now.
right.
And that's just part of who we are.
Right. And we are very multifaceted and complex. And as I like to say, there's many causes and conditions in life. right? Like when people say to me, like, why is the suicide rate so high? I'm like, why is the sky blue? Like, there are so many reasons, but I do really appreciate that you brought up that point of parents not blaming themselves
Mhm.
and the guilt, how guilt stifles them from being able to help, because I do see that a lot also.
Yeah,
That just, we all do the best we can with the tools we have. There's so much that's out of our control when it comes to our kids. Like
right.
99% of what is happening with our kids is out of our control. Uh,
Yep,
and it really, like the relationship then that they can give their kids with the parents and also with the kids' relationship with food could make a big impact. So I'm curious if we could get then into, some thoughts and discussion on skills and maybe practical things that parents listening can do, and maybe even young women who are listening. Um, developing a healthy, self-compassionate, loving relationship with your body that's not dependent on your size is not a
right.
one-time, it's not a one-trick pony. So,
No, it's really
I
not.
recognize that what you're going to be sharing, anything that you're sharing are the kinds of things that take, you're taking the long, short way, as
Right.
you call it. But I'm
Uh-huh.
curious if you have some thoughts on like, what are some initial steps that people can take to, you know,
Certainly.
change things
One of
out?
the things that I like to say is that, first of all, science shows small changes have long and big impacts. So sometimes we feel that we have to make sweeping changes, and that's unrealistic with our life and our lifestyle in order to make change.
Mm,
That's not true. Even a small change can make a very big difference. How you start to think about things, how you incorporate them in your lives. And sometimes when we decide to you know, take too many things on at once, it's unrealistic for us to be able to do that. So that's number one that I like to say. Number two is I love this quote from Rabbi Twersky, and I always share it, that ruminating about the past will get you nowhere. So go ahead and learn from it, whatever you can, and put it behind you. Remember, there's nothing you can do to change it, but you can use its lessons to inform and improve your future.
mm,
So anything that we talk about or anything that changes that we make, this is because you care and you want to do something differently. It's not about guilt from the past. What's done is done. We really, I compare it to like a fishbowl. We've all grown up in the same water, hearing diet culture and certain types of messaging, and believing that our value or our ability to do certain things is based on our body size. And so we might have that predisposition, but that doesn't mean that we have to keep that predisposition forever. So I really always like to kind of qualify it that way, because I think it's hard for people. Sometimes we get stuck in that guilt, and it really doesn't serve us, and it doesn't help us move forward from it. It's nobody's fault, and let's just kind of say, okay, I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to try to make some small changes. And I think one of the things that we can definitely do is stop focusing on externals. It will be harder to compliment somebody that you've seen. Always an external compliment is a very easy way to kind of make someone feel good sometimes, but it's not a thoughtful one, because everyone says the same thing. You look pretty, I love your outfit, even for little girls and for children. When we think of a compliment, it's just so great to see you. I always enjoy spending time with you. You look so happy. You look like you have good energy, whatever that looks like. I love that color on you. The outfit you put together is so creative. When you actually take a compliment and really think about it, it has a much deeper effect on the person and is much more meaningful versus just, oh, you look so great. Everyone says that. Do people really believe that? Most of the time, we're just like, oh, she just had to say that, or she had to say something. We don't even believe it ourselves. So let's stop focusing on externals and show our kids that we're going to focus a little bit differently. And I think that that's already a big shift in starting to see things differently. Do you ever compliment your kids on their externals? Yes. Little girls, little children do need to hear that you feel that they're beautiful, but beauty is not just a physical construct. So
right.
their beauty is not just their physical appearance, it's who they are, right? Their midas, their character traits, their, I don't know, talents, abilities, capabilities. And we want to keep it mostly on that. But yes, it doesn't mean that you should never tell them they're beautiful, but it shouldn't be the primary way that they hear something positive from you. When
Mm,
you notice the little things that they do, that has so much more meaning for them. Um, I think it's also important for us to kind of change the focus in how we talk about our bodies, right? So oftentimes for whatever reason, our bodies become ornaments that people look at, that we have to look at in a certain way, instead of instruments in our service of Hashem. And so we really want to shift that, thinking about our bodies. First of all, our bodies are gifts. They are a gift from Hashem. They are the vehicle for our neshama in this world. And so it's really on loan. and it's our achrayas to treat them properly. So caring for them in the right way is very important, but also teaching our children to recognize the amazing things our bodies do every day, right? We say Asher Yatzar, which is our way of thanking Hashem for our systems and everything working, but oftentimes we don't remember, right, to really focus on that. We say it quickly, we get out of the bathroom, but like if we take the time as parents to think about how amazing it was, like today maybe I went on a walk and it was so amazing that my legs took me on this 3 mile walk outside and I got to see so many beautiful things. Like I'm really appreciative of my legs, or how our eyes see things, right? We take it in one way and our brain flips it around, and how incredible that is. We have to start appreciating things about our bodies and saying them out loud, either about ourselves or their kids to themselves. Think about our bodies in a whole different way. And we have to help our kids do that. And we have to also shift that as well. But it's a really powerful way of changing that conversation. And I would say, food has to be changed. The way we think about food, we talked about this, as nourishment, it's fuel. It's something we need several times a day, every day. Kids have to feel safety, knowing that they will have meals, they will have snacks,
Mm.
that it's there for them. But we have to be a little more careful about forcing them to finish or telling them they've had enough. There are different ways of thinking about food,
Right.
different ways of using food. And like I said, we really don't want our relationship with food to be about alleviation of negative emotions, about feelings of achievement. It's really more about nourishing our bodies. So even the way we talk about food, instead of calories in and calories out, what does that food do for us in our body? Let's talk about our child. She has a huge test coming up today. Okay, what do you think is a good breakfast for you that's going to keep you focused, that's going to help you today have the energy that you need, the brain energy for this test? Protein is a great option for this because it gives you long-term sustenance and focus. So maybe, would you like eggs? Would you like some cottage cheese and yogurt? Would you like, let's do a smoothie, whatever they want. But like now we're talking about what food does in your body for you. Maybe they're going on a trip, a Lag BaOmer trip. You're going to be running around a lot outside today. What's going to give you energy? I think today we need a little more carbs. Maybe we're going to give you, some popcorn or whole wheat bread in your lunch, or whatever that looks like, to give them energy, to understand what food is doing for you, instead of just talking about it. Okay, you ate this much. You ate, I don't know, a bag of chips. That means you have to jump rope this many times to burn it off, or walk for this long on the treadmill. No. That's cause and effect. That doesn't really help a positive relationship with eating and food. So teach them skills about understanding hunger and fullness cues. Different kids feel hunger differently. Some people get that feeling in their stomach. Some kids get hangry. Some
Mhm.
kids get a headache. Some
Mhm.
kids have excessive thirst. So help your kid understand what that feels like, and even fullness,
Right.
recognizing that they might say to you, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat. Okay, but you know what? It takes 20 minutes sometimes for our brain and our tummy to communicate and realize that actually our tummy is full. So if you want to eat more, that's no problem. I just want you to sit here at the table for 15 minutes and let's make sure what our tummy is telling us. And most of the time, the kid gets bored and leaves. But
Right.
we have to teach them how to do that. They don't really always know.
But
Uh,
Marcy, can I
yeah,
interject with something that
please.
I'm hearing from you? So much of this is on the hands of us as the parents. And so something I want to add in here, kind of like, I mean, I see this within the long short road all the time. How can we empower our kids with this stuff if we don't, if the parents have an unhealthy relationship to how they eat, if the mom eats a Danish and then in front of her kid said, "Oh my God, I cannot believe I ate that. I have to starve myself for the next 12 hours," or, "Oh, we're going out to a nice restaurant for dinner tonight. I'm gonna skip lunch so that I have room for food later." We have to do the work, because how are we empowering our kids to feel good about ours? Like they're absorbing what they hear us say also.
So that's the next thing, actually. That's so
Okay.
funny that I was going to talk about. It's so important for us to get help with our own issues, because
Yes.
it's not just for ourselves, it is for our children.
Yeah.
And it's really important to create that intentional mindset. I share often this quote from Wilma Rudolph, who was the first American woman to win 3 gold medals. And she said, "My doctor told me I would never walk again. My mother told me that I would. I chose to believe my mother." And she
Wow.
went on to win 3 gold medals in, it was track, I believe, or hurdle jumping or something like that. And it gives me chills every time because it's like we don't realize what a force we are for our children in this world and what an influence we have on them. And her values, her sense of self, whether it's done consciously or not, our daughters are looking to us for all those kinds of things. So it's really important if we're struggling for us to really get help as well.
Yes.
And I also just like to share in this area here is that, I've kind of created a mother-daughter curriculum because sometimes we are struggling with something and we don't want to put that on our daughter. And so how do I have a conversation with her about certain topics? And
Right.
so I've created kind of this mother-daughter journal and companion about 11 different topics so that she can have a structured way of having this conversation, which might help her, but also help her daughter so that she doesn't put kind of her issues maybe on her daughter, because it is really hard. It is really, really hard to create that intentional mindset. You have to get the help that you need. It's really our influence, I like to say, begins before our child is born when they're still in our womb. And it
Yep.
goes on long after we're no longer here with them in the world.
Yeah.
So mothers will tell me, oh, I won't eat the food that I serve my children. I'm going to eat a different meal. Why are you serving that to your children if you won't eat it?
Right. And what kind of message does that send?
And what kind of message does that send that you don't sit down with them and have dinner, or that you refuse to eat food that you give them? That's a powerful message that you're giving your child, right? So I think that that's also really important. But I agree with you. I don't like to put it all on the mom. I mean, there's a lot of societal things,
Oh,
but I
no,
do think it's
definitely not.
important. Yeah. And honestly, never commenting on somebody else's weight or shape. It's never our business. It's unless, like I said, we're their doctor and it's a conversation we have to have with them. Otherwise, it's none of our business. And like you said,
Yeah.
we don't know why someone lost or gained or changed their body size. We really don't understand everything that's happened or what's going on. So if we don't make those comments, our children won't make those comments. If we don't allow that kind of commenting in our home, then our children won't be talking about that. I think that's part of why we have so many comments. It's not just from the parents, it comes from grandparents, it comes from other people in the kid's
Right.
life. It's not just the moms.
It comes from strangers. It even comes
Yes.
from, I'll be in the grocery store or in the doctor's office or wherever in the airport with my kids, and someone will compliment a random
Yeah.
person who's sitting across from us waiting to board the flight will like compliment my daughter on how she's dressed, right? But
Yeah.
it's as you're saying this, I'm thinking, it's we really do as a society have the surface level approach of commenting on people's bodies.
Yeah.
Um, I'm even just thinking I'm 12 months plus 18 months postpartum. I had two babies in 2 years.
Wow.
And it was very interesting to watch how people that I have no relationship with, who I only see once in a while, who that's the first place they go is is about body.
Absolutely.
And
Think about what people say.
I don't love it. And I thank God have a pretty healthy, like I've worked on having a pretty healthy relationship with my body.
Sure.
It still makes me uncomfortable. So how much more so for people who really feel a lot of shame and disconnection from their vehicle, from their vessel that Hashem gave them. It's
I mean, think about even what people say to Briss. You look fantastic. You look like you didn't even have a baby. Like discounting the journey that your body has been through and the miracle that it has created, and what it took to get there and how it will take to come back to what it was.
it's a compliment to
It
say,
really makes you feel like, oh, if I don't look like that, if I don't get that compliment, I'm a failure, right? I had a baby 8 days ago. I'm dressed. I'm here. I'm doing this
standing.
mitzvah.
There's people complimenting me, and I'm not hiding in my. I have three girls. I cannot, God willing, when we get to that day, but like 8 days postpartum with all three kids, no one's coming into my house and no one's stepping into my bedroom. Like I cannot.
Right. And
The,
but the fact that you were
the
there,
level
like
of
that you
strength it
got
takes
there,
of mothers to do that is beyond.
right, with that you get somewhere with all your kids dressed or whatever it is like that's
That's
you should
it.
get a medal. You should get
Exactly.
a medal. I
Exactly.
think it's important that our daughters understand that our bodies go through many journeys in life. Puberty, pregnancy, menopause, stress, chas v'shalom, illness, whatever that looks like. And it's never our business to compliment or talk about somebody else's journey in their body. It
Yeah.
has nothing to do with us and our own.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people feel that by putting somebody else down or making that comment, it makes them feel better about themselves. Ultimately, it doesn't make you feel better about yourself. You
Right.
actually feel more shame that you had to shame somebody else in order to feel good about yourself.
Right.
It's never a positive thing to do. So it's really important kind of to make sure that diet talk, that negative weight bullying stigma type, that doesn't have any positive outcome. It really, like you said, you see it long-term negative outcomes,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. That's a hard one, but moms do need to do that. I think also, there are times when a doctor will say that your child needs to change something about their weight or their body, and how we handle that has to be very sensitive. We have to be very careful because this actually what the science shows is that when you tell your child that they need to change their weight or their body size, all they hear is you hate me, I'm
Yeah.
ugly, I'm horrible, I'm terrible. They don't hear anything else. That's kind of what they hear. So if your child needs to make a change and that's a medical change, it's different if it's diabetes or Crohn's disease or celiac disease. That's a medical condition. You have to listen to your doctor. I'm not going to say anything about that, but to change their body size, the studies have shown that it won't work long term if we force them to stop eating certain things, or we single them out as having to eat differently than everybody else. If you want to make changes in your home, go ahead, make changes for everybody. Help that child, go outside walking with them, do the things that need to be done, but don't single them out because it won't
They're
work
the
long term.
problem, because then you're labeling them as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Oh
saying
yeah.
something wrong
Mm-hmm.
with you and everyone else is fine and everyone else can eat mac and cheese, but you can't.
Right. You need to eat chicken breast. So,
Right.
and this is, but if a child decides that they want to make a change for themselves, that's different than if you're making that change for
Right.
them,
For them.
right? Then you are labeling them as if something's wrong with them and we have to fix you, instead of saying, you know what, all of us, we need to make some changes in the house. I can see that we want to do better. And that doesn't mean that you have to take everything out and throw it out in the house.
Right.
It just means you might make small changes,
Right.
and those will have long-term effects. When a child loses a bunch of weight quickly,
It's not
they will
helpful.
gain it back.
Yeah.
They will
And
gain it back. That's
I
just what it shows. Yeah,
want to single in on what you were sharing before about the importance of taking small steps. John Gottman talks about this in relationship, to do something called small things often. Rather than you whisk your spouse away for a romantic vacation once a year, you make sure to have even a 1 minute check-in with them before you go to work, right? Like they talk about a 12-second embrace and the power of what a 12-second hug can do for our nervous systems, right? So when I tell people, start with doing very small things, we don't like to hear that. We want to know, if I'm going to walk into the gym and lift 100 pounds immediately, then I'm going to see the results I want. And we do need those small, meaningful, consistent changes with compassion, I think is the main piece I keep want to stress, because the negative self-talk and the blaming and the hating ourselves is very counterproductive to actually making the positive changes we want to see in our homes.
absolutely. And honestly, what we're finding as we do pre and post workshop surveys and study of the girls is that the self-compassion piece, and the research is showing this, is actually the more important piece than changing their appearance ideal or their beliefs around their body.
Yeah.
What is sustainable, our bodies change. So that's something you have to get used to. Your body will change throughout your life. It will not stay the same,
Yes.
as we age, as we go through different journeys. It won't stay the same. But the way you speak to yourself, the expectations that you have for yourself and your body, actually those can remain the same. How you, like you said, the self-talk is so important. The expectations that you have, understanding that you're part of a bigger whole, and that struggle is part of the human condition, and that all of us struggle at one point or another. All these things are so important in the long-term health
Right.
for our children and for ourselves.
Right.
Because part of what we tell the kids is like, Hashem created you perfectly imperfect. We're not meant to be perfect. How he created you is perfect for what you need to be created, but it's imperfect.
Right.
And everything you need to fulfill your mission in this world, you have it. If you need it, you have it. If you have it, you need it. And even if that is different than somebody else's mission, and how they look or what they struggle with or the talents they have, you're meant to be different. You don't need to be the same to fulfill your mission. And it's really hard in our communities where we do have a lot of expectations of homogeneity. We do have a lot of conformity as part of the expectation. That's really hard for somebody who's different. And I don't mean different,
Which is most people, which is most people.
yeah, of
Meaning, and
course.
I think that I just I was interviewed on a friend's podcast this week and we were talking about the shidduch system. And I was sharing with her how hard it was for me and for my friends who were not the exactly in line, homogenous, check off the boxes of what we're supposed to look like in our community, right? In the Lubavitch community, we were supposed to look a certain way and we didn't look that way or we didn't act that way. So it was 10 times harder for all of us. So it is, we do have those expectations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's a risk factor for an eating disorder, but to me, it's just a risk factor in general, because if they feel that they're so different that they don't belong
Right,
or they're strange or whatever, I talk about this a lot. We have narrowed what we deem acceptable,
sure.
right? So we have this path that everyone we feel should be on, and we keep narrowing the road. And you talk about the long short road, but we keep narrowing it. So more
Right,
people are going to fall off because we can't all stand right there. We just
right,
can't.
right.
And I think a lot of the issues can stem somewhat from there. That is one of the biggest things that I see is the expectations. You live in certain communities, what that will look like
Right,
for you, what
right,
down the road will look like for you. And part of that is how we talk to the girls. And one of our workshops is really, what are your priorities and what do you want in this world? Because if you don't set your priorities, if you don't think about what's important to you, then you might get married and it might not be what you're looking for. It's important to think about these things. We want them to think for themselves. That's kind of the key, is to plant those seeds so that they learn to evaluate the messaging and think for themselves. And
right.
that's really what we want them to do, because building resilience, emotion regulation, having those skills and tools is dependent upon being able to evaluate messaging for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see so much overlap in our work in that, when people ask me how do we prevent suicide, like all the skills that you're saying, right? There's the putting out the fire and helping a person when they're in immediate distress, which is absolutely essential because you can't help them build skills if they're not here, right?
Right.
But at the same time, if we really want people to, feel safe in their bodies, and that's the way they feel about themselves physically, the way they feel about themselves mentally, they need that skill set to ride the waves of life. And, resilience is not, I'm a cool cucumber under all circumstances and nothing impacts me and I'm covered in armor and nothing, I'm foolproof. I'm challenge proof. It's no, the challenges are going to come and I'm strong enough to face them and to be kind to myself in the process. And
Yep. And I might fail a little bit and I might struggle still, right? I
because
really
I'm
might.
human, because I'm human and
Exactly.
Hashem created us to fail in because that's how we grow. And if Hashem wanted a perfect world, he would have given it to the Malachim and we wouldn't be here. But we're
Exactly.
here. So
Exactly.
it's necessary.
And the truth is, self-compassion, truly the studies, people who have cultivated and are able to incorporate it, those people are the more motivated, have less fear of failure, pick themselves back up, are able to be resilient, like you said. So self-talk, expectations, self-expectations, these are important for us to work on realistically, what we can and can't do. All these things are so important and they have such a huge impact on us. Even the self-talk is a very small thing you could do every day. One thing that you say to yourself every single day, and that's it,
Mhm.
or gratitude journaling, like people talk about, or even talking about exercise in a different way, more about joyful movement and understanding that moving our bodies has so many benefits. It has and not outside burning calories, right? Our immunity, our ability to sleep, our ability to focus, how we feel about ourselves, learning a new skill, uh, all these things, reduce stress, all these things from moving our bodies. So
Right.
kind of putting things in different contexts, I think, like you said, in the self-talk is really, really, really important.
Yeah. And it's something that everyone can already do right now. Like you don't have
Today,
to wait for that. You can start today.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Mhm.
really
And I think just also remember that our daughters' bodies change dramatically throughout adolescence.
totally.
They're not going to stay the same. And if there's a bit of a weight gain or a bit of a change, that's part of puberty. That's part of how they grow. And they need to be nourished throughout this time, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Adolescence is a very difficult time. It's the time when the most mental health diagnoses are given, is during adolescence. And really they're undergoing so many changes physically, emotionally. They're also even creating their own personal relationship with Hashem during adolescence, right? Up until now, they've kind of been told this is what we do. But now all of a sudden, like, how does that fit in with my life?
Yeah.
It's so important to allow them to have that growth in all areas, physically and mentally, um, to be a part of supporting it and not reducing it.
Right. It reminds me of something that Lubavitcher Rebbe, that the Rebbe said about youth, that youth have, I'm gonna paraphrase it, that youth have potential and untapped energy that when it's used positively in a resilience, fostering their untapped energy, they have more strength and more ability to change the world for the positive than the adults in their lives. And
Wow.
and that in the same way, right? Often when I talk to parents about like brain development and what adolescence looks like and why it's such a challenging time and why they're more at risk for suicide, I also want to empower parents who are hearing this that it's the same way that the adolescent years can be very, very challenging. They can also be years of immense thriving and beautiful growth. And it really depends on how we tap into what they're already naturally going through.
Mm-hmm.
And that we can really empower them to learn how to ride the waves of their life now so that they have those skills for way down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And validating the struggle along the way, being a part of the solution, knowing that you're a safe space that they can come to and talk to about things that they might see or hear, or even with social media and other things. But I think the parent has a big job, but I think that that job can really just be being there and the kid knowing that when I go to my mom or dad to talk to them about something, they're going to hear me, they're going to validate me, and they're going to care about me, right? I think that's very, very powerful as well.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, the relationship and the relational support and connection that a parent can provide for a child when the child is riding the waves of life,
Hmm.
that has such a potentially positive or negative impact on the child. And so meeting them
Absolutely.
where they're at without judgment and really seeing them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Marcy, I'm so grateful to you. I feel like we could go on. I have like I have to bring you back for a part two because there's so much more. But I just am so grateful to you for the work you're doing and thank you for helping empowering the next generation to have these skills so that they can really thrive.
Well, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for all you do. I'm always very impressed. It's such important work. I do think we overlap in a lot of ways. It was an honor to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Heart to Heart. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know there is hope and help is within reach. Since 2019, the Long Short Road has been walking alongside at-risk individuals, offering trauma-informed programs, a non-emergency hotline, and a community that fosters healing. No one has to go through this alone, and we are here for you. Discover how the Long Short Road is changing lives. Visit www.thelongshortroad.com or email us at info@thelongshortroad.com to learn more. You can be part of this mission. Sponsorship opportunities for Heart to Heart are available. Honor a loved one, support your community, and help us make mental wellness resources accessible to those who need them most. Until next time, remember, love and connection are the greatest healers. This is Leigh Ioffe reminding you, hope is here, healing is possible, and you are never alone. Together, we're walking this long, short road to a brighter future.